Our goal this year is 1,000 ounces.
1,000 ounces. All right, well, we all got to do and dirt to move, so let's go.
This stretch of ground was officially declared finished, surveyed, catalogued, and crossed off the list. Crews walked away and didn't look back for years. That's exactly why what Kevin Beets has just uncovered is shaking the gold mining world. This wasn't blind luck or a deep channel fluke. What emerged was a hidden bench layer, sitting precisely where everyone believed the gold story had ended. Engineers now estimate it could hold up to $110 million in unmined gold. Historic records skipped it. Modern models dismissed it. One decision flipped the entire season upside down. What's truly unsettling isn't just the money, it's what this discovery reveals. If ground this well-studied could hide something like this, how much more was left behind? Stay with this story. And before it gets wild, like and subscribe, because what Kevin uncovered forces a complete rewrite of everything we thought we knew about this ground. For years, this cut was treated like dead space. Crews walked past it, maps stamped it, worked out. Every historic reference that mattered said the same thing. Nothing left to chase. Old-timers shrugged it off. Modern teams trusted the paperwork, trusted the records, trusted the logic that if gold existed here, someone would have taken it already. That assumption turned out to be the most costly mistake on the claim. Kevin didn't see exhausted ground. He saw something that didn't add up. Standing at the edge of the cut, what bothered him wasn't the lack of visible gold. It was the geometry. The bench height felt wrong. In this region, glacial movement leaves clear fingerprints, stepped erosion, gradual tapering, predictable drop-offs. This bench ignored all of that. It sat flat and intact, like it had been spared while everything around it was torn apart. At first, it looked unremarkable, but the longer Kevin studied it, the more it felt preserved by time rather than erased by it. Then the stakes appeared. Not modern survey markers, old ones. Iron-spiked, half-rotted, barely visible until erosion exposed their tops. They weren't random. They were lined up with intention. Someone had carefully marked this exact elevation long ago, then walked away without explanation. That detail alone should have set off alarms decades earlier. Instead, it vanished beneath assumptions. The engineers weren't sold. On paper, the material above the bench read as pure overburden, low return, high cost, not worth touching. Every model agreed, move on. Kevin requested density readings anyway, quietly, no pitch, no debate. That's when the numbers stopped making sense. The readings came back significantly heavier than projected, enough to break the model entirely. Overburden doesn't behave like that. Not uniformly, not across a flat surface. Kevin didn't argue his case. He didn't float a theory. He ordered a single test scrape, just enough to confirm the truth or kill the idea completely. The bucket dropped. Steel teeth bit in and immediately sank deeper than expected. No hollow collapse, no loose chatter, just resistance. Dense, compacted material where loose gravel should have been. Then, the bucket came up heavy. Nothing dramatic to look at, but operators feel weight before they see it. When the load hit the ground, someone spotted color. Not a flicker, not a tease. Real gold, thick enough to quiet the radios instantly. And the location made zero sense. This wasn't deep gold. It wasn't misplaced tailings. This was elevation gold, exactly where it wasn't supposed to exist. The material moved to the wash plant, and that's where the math completely fell apart. Recovery rates jumped, not in a way you could blame on luck. This wasn't a spike. It was a shift. The mats filled faster than they should have, and the gold wasn't fine or scattered. It was even consistent, distributed, as if it had been sealed in place instead of churned by chaos. Kevin didn't call it a streak. He didn't call it a pocket. Those labels didn't fit. This wasn't gold that wandered into position. This was gold that stayed. And that realization changes everything, because preserved layers don't survive by accident. They survive because something stops the system above them from breaking through. Floods, silt, collapse, time. When that happens, gold doesn't move. It waits. Kevin went back to the records. Not the cleaned-up summaries, but the raw ones. Handwritten notes, partial surveys, missing pages. And there it was, a clean break in the extraction timeline. No explanation. Just an abrupt stop, followed by a note written in a different hand. Unstable ground. No follow-up. No remediation. No return. Engineers overlaid modern scans with survey lines drawn nearly 80 years earlier. The alignment was impossible to ignore. The bench sat just above known flood levels, high enough to avoid erosion, low enough to trap everything heavy. A natural vault, perfectly protected, perfectly hidden, and for reasons no one fully documented, deliberately avoided. That's when the mystery stopped being geological and became human. You don't abandon ground like this unless something forces you to. Safety risks, technical limits, fear of collapse without the tools to stabilize it. Whatever stopped them back then didn't remove the gold. It sealed it, and Kevin was standing right on top of it. The first test scrape wasn't a fluke. The second confirmed it. The third erased all doubt. This bench wasn't isolated. It stretched laterally. Same elevation, same density, same recovery. Every pass of the bucket revealed more of the same impossible reality. Gold surviving exactly where it should have been destroyed. No one said it out loud yet, but everyone knew. This wasn't leftover gold. This was untouched gold. The kind that doesn't weaken with exposure. The kind that shatters valuations and makes engineers uncomfortable because it refuses to obey the rules they rely on. Once that truth settled in, Kevin didn't slow down. He went wider, not deeper, opening the face, exposing more of the bench, knowing every meter uncovered raised the stakes. Because ground like this can't be half acknowledged. The moment it's recognized, it demands an explanation. That's when engineers stopped calling it unusual and started calling it wrong. The composition didn't match any regional model they'd trusted for decades. The gravel was too compact, the layers too clean, the transitions too sharp. This area should have shown chaos, flood scars, broken stratification, hydraulic violence. Instead, it looked intentional. No turbulence, no reworking. Just weight, stacked on weight, exactly where it fell. What disturbed them most wasn't the location of the gold. It was its behavior. Under normal conditions, gold on a bench tells a predictable story. As you move sideways, the heavy pieces drop out first. Finer gold travels farther. Then everything fades. That's how gravity and water sort material. That's the rule. But here, the rule was broken. The farther they opened the face, the heavier the gold became. Large pieces, ones that should have settled early, were appearing deeper into the layer. That simply doesn't happen unless the system was never disrupted to begin with. There were no signs of violent water movement, no scouring, no channels, no pressure-driven displacement. The layer hadn't been washed, churned, or reworked. Freeze-thaw cycles hadn't shredded it. Nothing had touched it. One engineer finally said what everyone else had been avoiding. This bench shouldn't exist. Not naturally. Not here. Not intact. That's when the first real estimate surfaced. Not written, not announced. just quietly exchanged between two people staring at the same data. 8 figures and rising. Kevin didn't ease off. He leaned in. As the bench widened, the machines began to feel it. Buckets dragged. Hydraulics strained. Steel groaned in a way operators instantly recognize. This wasn't loose pay gravel. It was compacted, compressed, nearly cemented by time. Every pass demanded more force, more control, more attention. The crew noticed the walls next. Hairline cracks where none should be. Subtle shifts in shadow along the face. This bench wasn't just holding gold. It was holding pressure. Concern came over the radio. Not panic, experience. Walls had failed before, and this kind of ground doesn't offer second warnings. Kevin reran the numbers. Slope angles, load paths, stress distribution. He recalculated in real time, adjusting the cut geometry as the bench revealed itself. Yesterday's plan no longer worked today. Every new meter of exposure changed the equation. Angles tightened, setbacks widened. Speed was sacrificed for control. On paper, it looked conservative. In reality, it was a calculated risk. Then Kevin made the call. Instead of picking at the bench, he ordered the entire face opened, end to end. No selective cuts, no half measures. He wanted the full layer visible, readable, understood. That decision carried real weight. If the wall failed, the season could be finished. If the bench destabilized, everything beneath it became unreachable. But hesitating now risked something worse, never understanding the true scale of what they were standing on. As the cut accelerated, so did the gold. Nuggets began appearing alongside fine gold, something that shouldn't happen in a disturbed system. Large pieces don't usually coexist cleanly with fines unless the material has never been reworked. The wash plant struggled to keep up. Mats clogged faster than anyone had seen on this site. Cleanups took longer. Weigh-ins climbed. No one bothered pretending this was normal anymore. Purity tests came back high, higher than regional averages. Fewer impurities, less alloy contamination. This gold hadn't traveled. It hadn't mixed. It stayed where it formed, sealed beneath everything above it. That alone forced a new model, then another. Each revision pushed the projected yield higher, stretching numbers that already felt dangerous to say out loud. Engineers ran volume calculations across the exposed face. Lateral continuity, depth consistency, density retention. Every variable pointed to the same conclusion. This wasn't a localized anomaly. It was a continuous bench system, extending farther than initial scans ever suggested. The gold wasn't thinning. It was holding. Finally, someone said the number. 110 million. Not projected profit, not upside speculation, raw in-ground value. Conservative math applied to material that was never supposed to exist. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Movements became sharper, conversations tighter. Every decision now carried a price tag large enough to define careers or end them. Kevin showed nothing. He kept advancing the cut, precise and controlled, fully aware that the margin between discovery and disaster had narrowed to almost nothing. The bench kept delivering. The gold kept getting heavier. And as the ground finally revealed its full story, the reason it stayed hidden became impossible to ignore. This bench sits above where miners are trained to look. Conventional wisdom says, gold follows depth. You go down. You chase channels. You push until bedrock answers you. Elevation is dismissed as waste unless proven otherwise. The old miners weren't wrong. They were efficient for their time. They followed gravity, followed water, followed the deepest signals, because that's where gold usually concentrates. And while they chased depth, this gold waited above. The very floods that should have destroyed a layer like this ended up preserving it. Each surge deposited compacted silt and overburden, sealing the bench before hydraulic forces could tear it apart. Weight accumulated. Pressure locked it in place. What should have been erosion became armor. By the time technology advanced enough to detect subtle anomalies, the models were already set, and no one questioned them. Software replaced instinct. Maps replaced memory. If the data said the gold was gone, the ground never got a second look. This bench lived in the blind spot between old habits and modern certainty. Too high to matter, too hidden to see. So it waited. Kevin didn't trust the model, he trusted the ground. And as the bench continued to open, a new problem emerged, one that had nothing to do with gold at all. Structurally, this layer wasn't just valuable, it was critical. The bench isn't just another gold-bearing layer. It functions like a structural shelf, spreading the weight of everything above it across the cuts below. For decades, it's been doing that silently, stabilizing the entire mine without anyone realizing it. Pulling it out doesn't just reveal gold, it removes support. The first signs don't come from the bench itself, but from underneath. Small sloughs, subtle shifts. Nothing dramatic, but enough to make engineers uneasy. Stress lines begin forming where there were none before. The mine's geometry starts changing faster than expected. This layer wasn't only hiding value, it was holding the system together. Failure simulations are run, and the results are blunt. Strip the bench too fast, and the lower walls could fail in sequence. One collapse feeds the next. Equipment buried. Access routes gone. Operations shut down. Suddenly, the gold isn't the only thing on the line. Kevin stands at the cut's edge, staring at numbers that offer no easy compromise. Move fast, and exposure increases. More exposure means instability. Slow down, and safety improves. But weather, freeze-thaw cycles, or regulatory delays could destroy the bench before it's fully recovered. There's no clean option, only trade-offs. Kevin chooses neither speed nor hesitation. He chooses control. Mid-operation, the entire mine plan is rewritten. Slopes change, extraction order flips, support zones stay intact far longer than originally planned. Instead of stripping the face completely, Kevin orders selective removal, cutting the bench in a way that redistributes load as material comes out. It's slower, it's riskier in the short term, but it keeps the mine standing. The redesign burns time and money, but it buys stability, and almost immediately, the numbers respond. 1 week of recovery eclipses what this site used to produce in an entire month. The totals don't rise, they explode. Cleanups turn into events. Scales struggle to keep pace. The math stops being theoretical and becomes unavoidable. This isn't a lucky streak. It's repeatable, sustained output. Morale flips overnight. Long hours feel different when every bucket confirms the decision. Operators push harder. Maintenance crews work non-stop as wear accelerates. Bearings run hot. Hydraulics scream. Steel shows fatigue. But no one slows down. The ground is giving, and no one wants to be the reason it stops. Engineers expand their scans beyond the original cut. The results confirm what Kevin already knows. The layer continues laterally beyond the current zone. Same elevation, same density, same gold behavior. This isn't an isolated bench. It's a coherent system. That realization reshapes the entire season. Plans built around incremental gains collapse. Targets are rewritten, priorities shift. The operation stops chasing gold and starts managing it. This layer doesn't just boost output, it dictates every decision. how fast they move, where they cut, how much risk they're willing to carry. From this point on, everything flows from the bench. The season no longer depends on luck, weather, or mechanical failure. It depends on one question alone. Will the bench hold together long enough to take what it's been hiding? That reality lands in front of Tony. He doesn't react the way anyone expects. No outburst. No loud skepticism. He spreads the data out in front of him and goes quiet. Uncomfortably quiet. Tony studies numbers, the same way he studies ground. Slowly, deliberately, searching for what doesn't fit. Production curves, recovery rates, slope revisions. Old maps he's seen 100 times, and the longer he looks, the clearer it becomes. This bench wasn't overlooked by accident. It was dismissed by habit. He asks a single question, not accusing, not defensive. Why was this ever written off? No one answers right away, because the truth is obvious. It didn't match expectation. It sat above the chase zone. Generations of logic said elevation was waste, unless proven otherwise. Tony leans back. Something clicks. Old family stories, half-remembered warnings about false high ground, about benches that tricked miners into thinking they were empty, suddenly line up with what Kevin found. Knowledge passed down verbally, never mapped, quietly lost as methods modernized. Tony says it plainly. Kevin saw something he didn't. That admission changes everything. This isn't approval anymore. It's respect. Earned, not inherited. Kevin didn't just find gold. He broke a pattern Tony himself had followed for decades. But respect doesn't buy time. Forecasts shift. Early cold fronts. Unstable weather. The kind that locks ground overnight. Freeze-thaw cycles don't slow benches like this. They destroy them. Expansion fractures. Collapse risks multiply. If winter hits with the bench half exposed, it won't survive intact. It will slump, break, and bury the gold it protected for decades. Every hour becomes a calculation. Real dollars weighed against real risk. Do they slow down and lose access, or accelerate and gamble that the ground holds long enough? Kevin accelerates. Schedules tighten. Shifts extend. Redundancies disappear. Machines cycle non-stop, rotating through maintenance just enough to stay alive. Risk rises with every bucket, but hesitation now would cost more than boldness. Angles adjust again. Material is pulled in controlled sections. Speed and stability balanced with zero margin for error. One misjudged cut, one missed fracture, one sudden weather shift. Any of it could end everything. The crew feels it. Conversations drop. Movements sharpen. Everyone knows the window is closing. This isn't routine mining anymore. It's recovery under pressure, the kind that defines careers or ends them. And still, the gold keeps coming. Cleanups stack. Weigh-ins stretch into the night. The numbers stop surprising anyone. They confirm. What began as an anomaly has rewritten the valuation of the entire claim. Zones once labeled secondary now outrank primary cuts. Long-term projections triple, then stabilize even higher. That $110 million figure starts to feel conservative. Engineers begin re-examining other parts of the property with new eyes, similar elevations, similar flood histories, similar dismissals in the records. An uncomfortable conclusion forms. This bench may not be unique. It may be the first example of something larger. Layers ignored not because they lacked gold, but because they contradicted expectation. A reminder that the most valuable ground isn't always the deepest. Sometimes it's the ground no one thought to question. And Kevin Beets is no longer just running the cut. He's changed how this ground will be read forever.